An attempt by Congress to depose Ghislaine Maxwell under oath went nowhere fast on Capitol Hill today. That's because Maxwell's virtual deposition before the House Oversight Committee ended, unsurprisingly, with her pleading the Fifth.
I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Now, Maxwell's attorney, David Marcus, did say that she would speak if granted clemency by President Trump, while dangling the possibility of clearing both President Trump and President Bill Clinton. While that was playing out today on the Hill, it was also the first day here in Washington for lawmakers to be able to see the unredacted files, what the Justice Department did not put out as a result of the disclosures following that law that the president signed. Keep in mind, when you look through what the public can see, there's a lot of black ink, as you can see here. This is just one section of the files that were released back in December by the Justice Department. In some cases, page after page are fully redacted and hidden from the public, not always with explanation as to why. In some cases, the DOJ has said it was to protect victims or survivors. We saw members going in to visit the Justice Department, though, to see what is behind those blacked out pages. At least a few Democrats, as they came out, said they saw this.
Donald Trump's name is all over these files, all over it. I mean, thousands and thousands of times.
But there are clearly co-conspirators in here that they can name. Okay, I mean, in the documents I saw, we got pictures and their names. They're talking about sourcing girls.
One Republican who saw those unredacted files today is one of the lawmakers who actually wrote the law forcing their release ultimately. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie is my next source here tonight. And thank you, sir, for being here. That was Jamie Raskin and Jared Moskowitz's takeaway. Obviously, we already knew Trump's name was mentioned in the files. You can see that publicly. What was your takeaway from what you saw behind there?
Well, Jared is right. There are co-conspirators named in these files that have been redacted. And so I was surprised to find the names of 6 men in there. One is a sultan. He may not be a co-conspirator, but he's the one who sent the torture video. Another is a high-profile CEO, retired, who was listed as a co-conspirator, literally listed as a co-conspirator on FBI documents. And he had been redacted, and his picture and his name. And then there were 4 men that are kind of in a list of 20 that includes Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and some victims. And I was able to find those 4 names. So 6 names in there. I'm asking the DOJ to unredact.
So you had said that on Twitter. Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General on the Sultan part, responded tonight and said, he quote tweeted you and said, you looked at the document, you know it's an email address that was redacted. The law requires redactions for personally identifiable information, including an email address. And he said the Sultan's name is available unredacted in the files. He says, be honest and stop grandstanding.
No, they redacted the email. Now, it may be a mistake on their part, or maybe they didn't intend to redact the Sultan's involvement in this torture video, but it is the Sultan's email. And then I put the Sultan's email back into their computer and found the Sultan's name. This is something you can't do at home. You can't do on the internet. And so I had to go in there and find it. This is an example of something, maybe it wasn't intentional on their part. I'd like to hear his take on the redaction of the CEO, who's listed as a co-conspirator in the 2019 child sex trafficking case.
So can I ask you, because, and I want to ask if this is the same person, Todd Blanche also said about that tonight that the document you're citing there has victim names in it.
Correct.
Seeming to say that's why there are redactions. He said, we have just unredacted Les Wexner's name from this document, but his name already appears in the file thousands of other times. And he says the Justice Department is hiding nothing. Is that the retired CEO that you're referencing?
It is. He unredacted it after I found it. That's a problem. And I'm glad they've admitted they made a mistake by redacting that.
So you're saying it was redacted when you went in there today, and after you tweeted that, they unredacted it?
Correct. Now he's got 4 other names he needs to unredact. Did he respond to that? There's a list of 20 people. And there's 4 men in there that need to be unredacted. Here's another troubling thing that I found.
Can you say who those 4 men are tonight?
I don't think they're well known. And so if I did, it wouldn't matter, but I could probably say them on the floor of the House. But I'll give the DOJ a chance to do what they did in these 2 examples, where I've discovered something and now they've responded. I want to give them a chance to respond and unredact those 4 names. But here's another problem, big problem that I discovered. Those big black screens of complete redactions. When you go in there and look on the computer, sometimes you lift off the black ink and there's white ink redacting files. And so when we asked the people in the room who weren't responsible for the redactions, they said, oh, we think those are how the files were given to us. Now, those are 302 forms that come from the FBI. And the FBI...
Which are witness interview.
Correct.
Forms,
witness
basically.
interview forms, which would have the names of people who are implicated in crimes by the witnesses and the victims. We can't see those. Now, the DOJ can say, well, this is how the FBI gave those to us. Here's the problem with it. The legislation that Ro Khanna and I wrote makes the DOJ responsible for producing the documents, but it compels the FBI and U.S. Attorney Generals to turn over those documents. So they don't have the authority to just make random redactions. Here's another problem with the redactions. You know, the DOJ put up files and then they pulled them back down. And in December, they pulled them back down, redacted a little more and put them back up in some cases. Well, in this latest tranche, they've pulled files down. They haven't put them back up. And when I go over to the computers, I can't see the files they've pulled down. I have hard copies from where they were up on the internet.
But they're not even available internally to you, from what you can see.
As far as I can tell.
And you don't know why that is?
I have no idea why that is. And I would hope that when I go back to the DOJ tomorrow, they'll make those files available.
You mentioned that you may be able to say these names on the House floor. For people who don't know, that's because you're protected by a clause, basically, that provides immunity to representatives and senators for things that you say in your legislative sphere for those actions. Are you willing to say those names on the floor?
Oh, absolutely I am. If that will serve the survivors. If the survivors want me to, I'll do it. But in the meantime, this is the kind of progress we need to make. We need the DOJ to admit that these men were listed as co-conspirators in their own files and then to release their own files, which it looks like Todd Blanche just did tonight. He admitted that, and this is a very significant admission on his part, because you have the FBI director, Kash Patel, who came to Congress and told us there was nothing in these files that implicates any other men in sex trafficking of minors. Yet we've got a document now that Todd Blanche just unredacted tonight because I found it, that shows that Lex Wexner was a co-conspirator, according to the FBI, in 2019 when Trump was president.
And he's the former CEO of Victoria's Secret.
Correct.
That was known to have been in Epstein's circle. That moment when Kash Patel testified previously, he said they uncovered no credible information about Epstein trafficking underage girls to anyone besides himself. I want to play that moment of what he testified.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
I'm asking you, in that stuff, there's nothing that's related to any other sex traffic, any other people engaged with Epstein in underage sex?
That's correct. To my knowledge, no.
Given what you saw today, does that testimony ring true to you still?
No, the FBI's own documents from 2019 list Leslie Wexner as a co-conspirator in a child sex trafficking case. So, you know, they've got some explaining to do.
Does that mean you think Kash Patel perjured himself?
You know, I thought when he said that, maybe the trick he's using in his mind is that, well, he's considering it prostitution, and maybe what they have is evidence of sex trafficking of people who weren't minors. But what we see tonight is the charge that Lex Wexner was a co-conspirator to was child sex trafficking, and it's on the FBI's own documents from 2019.
So you're saying that should be investigated, basically?
Should absolutely be investigated. The other problem with what Kash Patel said there is we've got, I believe his name's Leon Black, is implicated in these files too, as somebody that, and these are the attorneys at DOJ and in the New York courts who were referencing a case on Black to the DOJ. They say that Epstein trafficked women to Leon Black.
The Justice Department previously said, we did not redact any names of men, only female victims. You're saying you saw men's names redacted today, though.
I did. I saw 4 in a list of 20. The other people on the list were Maxwell, Epstein, and mostly survivors that I recognized. And then 4 men who weren't trafficked because their date of birth predates 1970. Like they were all born in the 60s.
And you see no reason why those men's names are redacted in these files.
No, unless they were in some random lineup. But this requires the DOJ to respond to it, just like they responded to my 2 tweets tonight about the Sultan, who had heretofore not been known, and about Lex Wessner, who is in the files listed as a co-conspirator on the file that they unredacted tonight.
And you're going back tomorrow to view more documents, is that correct?
You know, if I can just look at 40 documents and find 6 men, I'm going to go back and look at more of these millions of documents.
Congressman Thomas Massie, please keep us updated on what you see.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks for your time tonight.